Hello, good morning. What's up? It is still morning. It is 11:38, so it's still morning, okay? Here's the deal. This is probably one of the harder lessons we're going to do in this class, and this is also the lesson that most students struggled with last trimester. So I thought I'd make you this super special video where I go over the notes for this section. Now, in this section, we're talking about Cold War terms and ideologies and the difference between American values and Soviet values. Because if we're being honest, they were two completely different people and they had two completely different ideas of how the world should work and how the world should go about its business. Now, America, democracy all the way, capitalism, like you need to have businesses, you need to let people have the ability to buy what they want, to sell what they want, so on and so forth. And then you have democracy, which is letting other people vote. Like we all have a voice voting. Whereas the Soviets felt that their government should control their citizens' wants and needs. So the government's going to tell you what you're going to get from them, and they're going to tell you the best way that a government is run, and that's just how it is. So I'm going to go through these ideologies, terms with you, and I'm going to try to put it into like simpler terms because I know that it can be difficult. And we're going to go over the American value on this and the Soviet value on this and how they differ, which is what you're doing in your charts today. So if you want to take out your charts when you watch this, I highly recommend it. It will be beneficial. So capitalism. Capitalism is basically private ownership of industry, freedom of competition, and really a government having a laissez-faire approach. And what that means is the government's kind of more hands-off, like they're lazy. Laissez-faire is kind of like a lazy government. So government not having much control, just kind of laying in back, like letting competition happen. Like if Bob wants to sell zucchinis and June wants to sell zucchinis, then they both can, and that's like an equal competition. And that's totally okay in a capitalist world because the whole idea is competition. So, based on supply and demand, like what's being demanded, what's being supplied, and then pricing, so on and so forth. So, capitalism is really like about the seller and what they want to sell and how you want to do it. So if you want to go start a business in the United States, you do you. You go for it. You go start a business if you have the money and you can do it. Competition is healthy. Not so much in the Soviet Union. So the Soviet perspective on capitalism is that it creates poverty and oppression. The idea here is that it creates the haves and have-nots. It allows certain people to completely just take over the entire world, become billionaires, millionaires, like the top 1%, and it leaves the other 99% in poverty and oppression. But America, their perspective is that they see that it's success through hard work. So if you've earned that living, if you've earned that money, if you've earned the position to be in the top however many percent through competition, that's totally legal and that should be applauded, not thought of as creating poverty and oppression. The US believes that it provides a higher quality of goods and services, meaning that you get better products out of this because you're in competition with other people. So if you're both growing zucchini, let's say June's zucchinis are bigger than Bob's zucchinis, well, and they're the same price, well, obviously you're going to go buy June's zucchinis, right? So that's where competition comes in. So then Bob has to go over here and try to figure out, oh, I can make mine greener. Okay, do you want greener or do you want bigger? Who knows? You do you. I don't know much about zucchinis, but like if you do, you go for it. So that's capitalism. That's a general. I'm assuming you're going to have to pause in there to like fully understand this. And also my hair is really bothering me. It's why I keep touching it. Sorry. Next, we are going to talk about socialism. So capitalism and socialism are both economic systems. They are the two different systems we're going to be talking about is government systems and economic systems. So capitalism and socialism are economic systems. Capitalism is the US. Socialism is the Soviet Union. So socialism stresses government ownership. Government has control over everything in the economy. They're going to make sure everything is equal, and they're going to make sure that it's a classless society. So the government's going to tell you where you're going to work, what you're going to wear, where you're going to live, what you're going to do for the rest of your life, what you're going to do for a career, so on and so forth. It's really believing that the government should have complete control over the economic system. And that differs from capitalism, because in capitalism, they really want you to have the freedom. They want to have government hands off. They don't want you to feel like the government has too much control. The government has a little bit of control. That's just going way too much in depth. But the main difference here is socialism is full government control and capitalism is not. Capitalism is very hands-off government. So Soviet perspective is that it hoped workers would unite and overthrow capitalism. So the idea here is that they wanted to show the world that this was working, that workers loved this, and they really were hoping that it would cause people to unite and be like, no, capitalism isn't the way to go. So this graph over on the right-hand side shows the richest 20% down to the poorest. And what they really wanted to do is they wanted to make that more equal, just like a straight, like not even have this graph at all. Like there's classless everything. We don't want anyone to be better than anyone else. Everyone is equal, so on and so forth. Equality over freedom kind of situation. So the Soviet Union really loved government ownership because it allowed for the wealth to be distributed or given out equally to everybody. And it hoped that workers obviously would unite and be like, capitalism, poo-poo on you. Whereas the American perspective thought that it threatened people's right to own and control property, which is huge if you have looked at or seen the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution. One of our big platforms is that we have private property and ownership of that property, and it's your land and you own it. You can do what you want with it. And socialism threatens that. It threatens that because everyone's on equal playing field. Everyone gets the same as everyone else. Okay, communism, and then I believe the next one is democracy. So these are the government systems now. The two before this were socialism and capitalism are both economic systems, and then communism and democracy. Hold on, I have to check something. I have to make sure I'm doing this correctly because I know that those other two were on there, but let me make sure that I'm not going too much off task here because I know that I don't want to screw you guys up because that would just be cruel and unusual punishment. And I don't want to do that to you. I hope everyone's doing good. I hope that you're staying positive throughout all of this because I know that it is hard. Miss Nelson has been struggling too because she's a very social person. Anyways, okay, democracy. Okay, so capitalism, socialism, democracy, and totalitarianism. Okay, so here's the deal with totalitarianism. Is it down there? Yeah, it is. Okay, so communism, we're going to skip over communism because that's the economic system. Socialism and communism go hand in hand, okay? Ignore communism. We're going to talk about, I believe, democracy. Yeah, democracy and totalitarianism. So these two are complete opposites to you. You have democracy, which is a form of government by the people, for the people. So everyone has a voice. You can go out and vote. You can have referendums. You can go and say you want something from the government and you can fight for it. You can write bills. You can pass bills. Everything is done for the people to be able to have a voice. Everyone has a voice in democracy, and the power is collectively all of us together. So the Soviets did not like this perspective because they believe that democracy can only occur when everything is equal. So it isn't until the economic system is fixed, so everything's equal, everyone's making the same amount of money, everyone has jobs, everybody has everything, everyone's equal, that democracy can work. And the American perspective is that majority rules. So it doesn't matter if anything else is equal, we still have a voice even if we're not all equal, and majority rules over everything being equal. So totalitarianism is essentially total government. It is totally government based. Government is the one who chooses what happens. It's one or a few people who have complete control over the population. Freedom of press, speech, and religion is denied. You do what the government tells you to do, not what you choose to do. And that does equate to equality. If you think about it, if no one has press, no one has freedom of speech or religion, and you're all the same, that's equality. And that's exactly what a totalitarian government is trying to go towards in the Soviet Union at this time. It is completely and utterly different from democracy altogether. Okay, so totalitarianism, Soviet perspective, is that it creates equality by transferring wealth because the government has control of everything, and it protects the weak and poor from the strong and wealthy because everything is equal. It all stems back to equality and equal. Whereas the American perspective is more about freedom. So you have the freedom of speech, freedom to assemble, and you have the freedom of press. You can print what you want, you can say what you want, you can assemble when you want, you can have peaceful protests, so on and so forth. In America, very much not totalitarianism. Okay, the real question here is, and one of the questions you will be asked on the test is, which one do you believe is more important, equality or freedom? And that was a big discussion when it came to the Soviet Union and the United States as well. And it really stemmed down to the Soviet Union siding with equality because you can't have anything else work successfully until everything is equal, and the US, where, well, nothing can be equal if they don't have the freedom to do what they want. So you have two different ways of thinking in minds. Equality is just the condition of being equal. Like everybody has the same everything. Nobody can have different. If one person has it, everyone has it. Healthcare, education, housing, employment, basic needs are met, like all of it. Free, everyone has the same opportunity, no matter where you are or who you are. Obviously, the Soviet Union, equality of condition is most important. Living conditions, basic necessities need to be equal. Whereas the US still agrees that you should have equality, but a different form of equality, where it's actually equality of opportunity and equality before the law. So you should still have equality of opportunity, meaning basically like you should have the equal right to freedom. Anywho, so then you have, okay, we're not doing individualism, we're not doing collectivism, we're doing freedom. Okay. I chose to skip two of the words because they're very similar to, they're easier to understand. Collectivism is literally like a group of people doing something, and individualism is obviously people doing it individually. Freedom is the condition of being free to express and do what one pleases. So in the United States, you have a ton of different newspapers, you can print freely, you can print what you want, you can say what you want to an extent. There's all the government, everything underneath too. You can practice whatever religion you want. You have the freedom to buy land. You have the freedom to own a business. You have a freedom to basically choose what path you want to take in life. And that is what the US believes in. That is why when the Puritans from Europe came over and established their colony in the United States, it was to get away from all of the control they felt the government had in Europe. So our country is built on the idea of freedom. So those are the main differences between those. If you still have any questions and you're like, Miss Nelson, I still don't understand how one is different than the other, please let me know. The biggest thing I want you to understand, let me go back to this right here, and I want you to write this. I want you to write this down on your chart when I tell you, okay? Democracy and totalitarianism is government system. Democracy and totalitarianism is the government system. On the bottom, socialism and capitalism are the economic systems. The economic systems. And then you just have equality and freedom. US favors freedom, Soviet Union favors equality. The US still thinks equality is important, but they favor freedom over equality, and the Soviet Union favors equality over freedom. Okay. Let me know if you have any other questions. If you need clarification, I'm here for you. I love you guys, and I'll see you later.